Before the flood, before the world knew fear, the heavens opened, not with salvation, but with desire. And from that forbidden union, giants walked the earth. This is the story of the Nephilim, the antediluvian world. Picture the earth in its youth, untamed, vast, wild. Humanity is spreading across fertile valleys and rugged mountains, building the first cities from stone and ambition. The sky stretches endlessly above, a veil between the mortal realm and the divine. This is the world before the flood, before written history, before kingdoms rose and fell. A world where humans still remembered the garden, still felt the breath of God in the wind, still lived for centuries under skies untouched by industrial smoke. The land is rich. Rivers flow like arteries through Eden's remnants. Forests stretch for thousands of miles, untouched by axe or fire. Animals roam in abundance, creatures we would no longer recognize, species that would vanish beneath the coming waters. But something is stirring. In the heavenly courts, beings of pure light, the Watchers, the Bene Elohim, the sons of God, stand at the boundary between worlds. They are guardians, observers, messengers of the Most High, created before humanity, before the earth itself was formed. They witnessed the birth of stars, the separation of waters, the breathing of life into Adam's clay. Their purpose: to watch over humanity without interference, to observe, to record, to serve. But temptation has no regard for divine law. From their celestial vantage, the Watchers gaze down upon the daughters of men, women of extraordinary beauty, not just physical, but radiant with life, creativity, passion, the divine spark that makes humanity the crown of creation. They laugh, they dance, they create art and music. They love with a fierce mortality that immortal beings could never comprehend. The divine beings, who knew only the cold perfection of heaven, are captivated by something they were never meant to feel: desire. It starts as curiosity, then fascination, then obsession. And in that moment, watching from the pristine halls of heaven, the cosmic order begins to crack. The conspiracy of Mount Hermon, the Book of Enoch, one of the oldest surviving Jewish texts quoted in the New Testament itself, tells us their names. Semjaza, the leader, the first to conceive the unthinkable; Azazel, the corrupter, the one who would teach humanity its darkest arts; Arakiel, Ramiel, Kokabeel, Tamiel, Ramiel, Danel, Shazakiel, Barakiel, Asael, Armoros, Bathariel, Bezaleel, Ananiel, Zakiel, Shamziel, Satariel, Turiel, Yomiel, Sariel. 200 in total. 200 beings of light and power, standing at the edge of rebellion. Semjaza knows this is madness. He knows the punishment will be severe, perhaps eternal. So he proposes a blood oath. If they are to fall, they will fall together. No one will be spared. No one can claim innocence. They will bind themselves in mutual guilt, shared damnation. They gather on Mount Hermon, a towering peak that touches the clouds, straddling what will one day be called the border between Israel and Lebanon. The mountain's name itself is prophetic. Hermon derives from the Hebrew Huram, meaning devoted to destruction. Here, at the summit where earth meets sky, they swear their terrible oath. Thunder rolls across heaven, and then they descend. Picture it: 200 burning stars falling from the firmament, trailing light like wounds torn in the fabric of reality. The humans below, shepherds, farmers, children playing in fields, stop and stare in wonder and terror. Are these gods? Angels? Demons? When they land, the earth trembles. Mountains shudder. Rivers change course. The Watchers have arrived. The seduction: they do not arrive as conquerors at first. They come as lovers, as teachers, as gods walking among mortals. Imagine being a woman in that ancient world, living in a small village of mud, brick, and thatch. Your life is hard, beautiful, simple. You know nothing beyond your valley, your family, the rhythm of seasons. And then he appears, taller than any man, eyes that burn with inner fire, skin that seems to drink the sunlight. A voice that resonates in your chest like thunder from a distant storm. He speaks, and you understand languages you've never heard. He touches your hand, and you feel power coursing through you, not just physical, but something deeper, something that makes you feel immortal. How could you resist? The daughters of men are awestruck. How could they refuse these beings who seem like walking gods? The Watchers are beautiful beyond human measure, knowledgeable beyond human understanding, powerful beyond human comprehension. The unions are formed, covenants are spoken. The boundaries between heaven and earth, between mortal and divine, are shattered like pottery dropped from a great height. The Watchers take wives, not one each, but many, entire harems. They build palaces of stone and cedar. They establish themselves as priest kings, intermediaries between humanity and heaven, though heaven has already cast them out. Months pass. The women's bellies swell. And when the labor comes, the midwives flee in terror. The birth of monsters, the first Nephilim, emerges not with a baby's cry, but with a roar that shakes the birthing chamber. The child is enormous. Not infant-sized, but already the size of a grown man. Its eyes open immediately, not with the unfocused gaze of a newborn, but with terrible awareness and hunger. The mother survives. Barely. Others are not so fortunate. The Book of Enoch grimly records that many women die in childbirth, their bodies unable to contain the hybrid monstrosities growing within them. The Nephilim tear their way into the world, leaving destruction in their wake from their very first breath. The Hebrew word Nephilim has been debated for millennia. Does it mean fallen ones? Those who cause others to fall? Or simply giants? The Septuagint, the ancient Greek translation of Hebrew scriptures, renders it as gigantes, giants. The ancient texts are unanimous on one thing: these offspring were not human. They grow at an impossible rate. Within weeks, they tower over normal men. Within months, they reach 10, 15, 20 feet tall. Some accounts claim they grew to 30 feet or more, living titans who walk the earth with the weight of mountains in their footsteps. Their strength is terrifying. A Nephilim child can uproot trees. An adolescent can tear apart wild bulls with bare hands. A full-grown giant can shatter city walls with a single blow. Their appetites are insatiable. They devour entire herds of cattle in a sitting. They drain granaries meant to feed villages. They consume, always hungry, never satisfied, driven by the impossible metabolism of their hybrid bodies. At first, they are marvels, heroes, warriors of renown. Genesis 6 verse 4 calls them the mighty men of old, men of renown, the Gibrim, the mighty warriors whose names would echo through history. These were the figures who would become legends, the demigods whispered about in every ancient culture. Some scholars suggest they are the origins of Greek heroes like Hercules and Achilles, the Norse Jotnar, the Sumerian god-kings like Gilgamesh who claim to be two-thirds divine. Every ancient culture remembers them, the titans who warred against the Olympians, the Rakshasa of Hindu texts who battled against gods, the Quinametsin of Aztec lore who built cities before humanity, the Fomori of Celtic myth, the frost giants of Scandinavia, all memories of the same truth. But legends are born from blood, and the Nephilim are about to bathe the world in it. The Nephilim grow hungry. Their size demands more food than the earth can provide. They devour livestock by the hundreds. They consume crops meant to feed entire regions. Famine spreads in their wake, not from drought or plague, but from sheer gluttony. Villages begin to starve. Families watch their children grow thin while the giants feast. Resentment builds. Fear builds. And when the food runs out, the Book of Enoch records something far more horrifying. And they began to sin against birds and beasts and reptiles and fish, and to devour one another's flesh and drink the blood. The Nephilim turn cannibal. Giant against giant. Brother against brother. They wage brutal wars among themselves, using trees as clubs, boulders as weapons. The earth runs red with blood that flows like rivers. And then, inevitably, they turn on humanity. Humans become prey. The Nephilim enslave them, devour them. use them as sport and entertainment. The men of renown become tyrants, oppressors, monsters in truth as well as form. Cities fall. Civilizations crumble before they can truly begin. The dream of human progress drowns in an ocean of violence, the forbidden knowledge, but the Watchers' corruption goes deeper than just fathering monsters. They corrupt knowledge itself. Azazel, whose name means scapegoat, and who will be cast into the desert in chains, teaches men the art of war. He shows them how to mine metal from the earth, how to forge bronze and iron into swords, shields, breastplates. He teaches the crafting of weapons designed for one purpose only: killing other humans efficiently. Before the Watchers, humans fought with sticks and stones. After Azazel, they waged industrial-scale warfare. He also teaches women the art of manipulation, cosmetics to enhance beauty, jewelry to display wealth, the adornment of the body to deceive and ensnare. The text is clear. These aren't neutral technologies, but tools of vanity and seduction meant to corrupt natural order. Other Watchers reveal forbidden sciences. Sanjaza teaches enchantments and root cutting, what we might call pharmacy and herbalism, but twisted toward poisons and mind-altering drugs. Armoros teaches the resolving of enchantments, counter-magic, binding spells. Barakil teaches astrology, the worship of stars, the belief that human destiny is controlled by celestial bodies rather than by God or free will. Kokabil teaches the constellations, divination by the heavens. Shazakil teaches the knowledge of clouds and weather signs, attempts to control and predict nature. Shamzil teaches the signs of the sun, solar worship, calendar magic. Serial teaches the course of the moon, lunar cults, menstrual magic. These are presented as benign sciences, but as corruptions of natural law, attempts to hack reality, to access power meant only for the divine, to make humanity into gods before they're ready. The earth becomes a nightmare of sorcery and violence. Magic wars erupt. Blood sacrifices become common. The Nephilim rule as priest-kings, demanding worship, tribute, and human offerings. Every inclination of human hearts turns toward evil. The cry of earth, the Book of Enoch records that the earth itself begins to cry out. Not metaphorically. The ground literally screams in agony beneath the weight of innocent blood. The spirits of the murdered, humans slain by giants, women destroyed in childbirth, children sacrificed on dark altars, ascend to heaven like incense of suffering. The four archangels, Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Uriel, hear the screams. They witness the devastation from their positions in heaven. They see the Watchers' betrayal. They see humanity on the brink of extinction. They see the bloodlines becoming so polluted that soon there will be no purely human lineage left on earth. They bring their case before the throne of the Almighty. And in Genesis 6 verses 5-6, we read God's response, words that still carry the weight of divine sorrow. The Lord saw how great the wickedness of the human race had become on the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of the human heart was only evil all the time. The Lord regretted that he had made human beings on the earth, and his heart was deeply troubled. The word translated as regretted is Anakim in Hebrew. It means to grieve, to suffer pain, to be sorry. God's heart breaks over what his creation has become. But grief demands justice. The sentence, the verdict, is swift and terrible. The Watchers will be bound, not destroyed. Angels cannot die as mortals do, but imprisoned in darkness until the final judgment at the end of time. Azazel receives special punishment. He is cast into the desert, into a place called Dudiel, a wilderness of sharp stones and eternal shadow. Jagged rocks are heaped upon him, burying him alive in darkness. There he will remain, sealed away, until the day of judgment when he will be cast into the eternal fire. The other Watchers are bound in the valleys of the earth, chained in pits of shadow beneath mountains, locked away where they can watch the world above, but never touch it again. They will witness the consequences of their sin for thousands of years, until the final day when all accounts are settled. But the Nephilim, they cannot be imprisoned. They are flesh and blood, however corrupted. They can be killed. God commands the archangels to incite the giants against one another, to turn their violence inward. so they destroy themselves in brutal civil war. Giant against giant. Father against son. The earth becomes an abattoir as the Nephilim tear each other apart in rage and madness. But this isn't enough. Some will survive. Some will hide. Some will escape into remote caves and mountain strongholds. So a final solution is decreed. The flood. Every living thing will be washed away. The corruption will be drowned. The earth will be scrubbed clean, reset to innocence. Only Noah, a man whose genealogy in Genesis carefully notes he was perfect in his generations, meaning his bloodline remained unpolluted by Nephilim genetics, and his family will survive to begin again. The command goes forth to the waters above and below. The fountains of the deep will break open. The windows of heaven will pour forth. The rains will fall for 40 days and 40 nights. And the age of the Nephilim will end in water and screaming. Genesis 6 verses 1 to 4. The canonical biblical account, brief but foundational. Found in Jewish Tanakh, Christian Old Testament, forms the basis for all subsequent interpretation. 1 Enoch, Book of Enoch, a Second Temple Jewish text, circa 300 to 200 BCE, not canonical in most Christian or Jewish traditions, but highly influential in early Christianity. Canonical in Ethiopian and Eritrean Orthodox churches. Quoted directly in Jude 1 verses 14 to 15 in the New Testament. Book of Jubilees, another ancient Jewish text, circa 100 BCE, expanding on Genesis narratives. Numbers 13:33, post-flood reference to Nephilim descendants, the Anakim, suggesting some bloodline survived. Deuteronomy 2 verses 10 to 11, 20 to 21, 3:11, references to Rephaim, Emim, Zamzumim, and King Og of Bashan, whose iron bed was 13 feet long, all described as giant remnant peoples. Cultural context. The Nephilim narrative reflects ancient Near Eastern concerns about divine human boundaries, the corruption of civilization, and the theological problem of evil's origin. Similar stories exist across cultures. The Titans of Greece who warred against Zeus, the Rakshasa of Hindu texts who opposed the gods, the Quinametsin of Aztec lore who built the pyramids before humanity, the Fomori of Celtic mythology, the Jotnar of Norse tradition. This suggests either shared cultural memory of catastrophic prehistoric events or universal human mythic archetypes about chaos threatening cosmic order. Theological significance. The story explains several biblical puzzles. Why the flood? Why was Noah specifically chosen? Why does God command the complete destruction of certain Canaanite peoples in Joshua? The answer: genetic corruption required cleansing, and Nephilim bloodlines persisted post-flood. Interpretive debates. Are sons of God angels or the godly line of Seth? Early Jewish and Christian sources overwhelmingly support the angelic interpretation. Did Nephilim survive the flood? The mention in Numbers 13:33 suggests yes, though it may refer to descendants or be hyperbolic language for intimidating enemies. Are the Nephilim the origin of demigod legends worldwide? Scholarly speculation, but the parallels are striking. The waters recede. 40 days and 40 nights of rain. 150 days of flooding. The highest mountains submerged. Every breathing thing destroyed. The earth is silent now. Scrubbed clean. Empty. The ark settles on the mountains of Ararat. The door opens. Noah and his sons Shem, Ham, Japheth, and their wives step onto muddy ground beneath a rainbow covenant. They are tasked with repopulating a world reset to innocence, a second chance, a new beginning. The Nephilim are gone. The giants are dead, drowned or destroyed, their bodies rotting in the deep places where floodwaters settled. Or are they? Because in the caves of Canaan, in the valleys of Bashan, in the shadows of ancient cities where water drained slowly, something stirs. Bones too large to be human, bleached white by receding waters. Weapons forged in a forgotten age. Bronze swords longer than a man is tall. Stone altars still stained with old blood. And in hidden places, protected by chance or dark providence, there are survivors. Nephilim who fled to the highest peaks. Bloodlines that persisted through Noah's sons, perhaps through Ham, whose son Canaan will be cursed, whose descendants will include the giants of Canaan. The flood was supposed to end them, but scripture itself suggests otherwise. 14 chapters after the flood, in Numbers 13, Israelite spies venture into the promised land. They return trembling, their faith shattered by what they've seen. We saw the Nephilim there, the descendants of Anak come from the Nephilim. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them. The giants have returned. In Deuteronomy, we learn their names: the Anakim, the Rephaim, the Emim, the Zamzummim. Entire tribes of giants dwelling in Canaan, descendants of those who somehow survived, whose bloodlines persisted. King Og of Bashan, the last of the Rephaim, sleeps in an iron bed 13 feet long. Goliath of Gath stands 9 feet tall, wearing armor that weighs 125 pounds, wielding a spear whose shaft is as thick as a weaver's beam. David will face him with only stones and faith. But that's another story. For now, understand this. The flood was not the end of the Nephilim. It was only the beginning of humanity's war against them. A war that would rage for thousands of years. A war that, according to some ancient texts, continues still, in the shadows, in the bloodlines, in the DNA that whispers of something other lurking in our genes. What if the giants never truly died? What if they're still among us? What if the Watchers, bound in darkness, are waiting for the day of their release? The Book of Revelation speaks